this is lesson 3.6, solving linear systems by substitution. This is our last lesson of Unit 3. It's also our last method of finding the point of intersection, and this method is called elimination. Elimination means that we're going to get rid of something. And in this case, we're going to get rid of a variable by either adding or subtracting. And what we're going to add or subtract is actually a whole equation. And I'm going to show you what that looks like, and that'll be our elimination. So again, I've got the example laid out in a table here. We're going to work through an example, and then I've got one for you to practice right next to it that'll set up pretty similarly. Our first step in elimination is the stack step. It's where we stack our equations on top of each other. So I'm going to write my first equation, 4x plus 4y equals negative 4. And I'm going to stack my second equation, 3x minus 4y equals 25, right underneath it. And this example worked out really nicely. In fact, most of the examples you're going to do are going to work out really nicely because they're going to be set up so that everything lines up rather nicely. What do I mean by that? I mean that the x's are first in both equations, the y's are second, then an equal sign, and then just the numbers. And that's the goal of elimination. First step is we want to line everything up. So x's over x's, y's over y's, sign over sign, and number over number. And if you can do that, it doesn't necessarily have to be in that order, it just has to be lined up so they have to match x's, y's, equals, and numbers. So it could be y's, x's, numbers, then equals. It doesn't matter as long as it's the same for both equations. So that's the stack step. And then we're going to draw a line underneath, and we're going to do an elimination step. And you can eliminate one of the variables by either adding or subtracting. So if we added 4x and 3x, would we get 0 x's? Would we be able to eliminate the x's? And the answer is no. If we were to subtract 4 and 3, we'd end up with 1. So no matter what, adding or subtracting, we're going to end up with some number of x. If we add our y's, 4y plus minus 4y, adding those, we'd end up with 0y. So in this example, we're actually going to add. So what we're going to do is we're going to add down the columns. We're going to add the x's, then add the y's, then add the numbers. So 4x plus 3x is 0x, and that's the elimination. Oh, I made a mistake. It's not 0x. What's 4x plus 3x? 4x plus 3x is 7x. That's not the elimination. Adding 4 and 3 would not give us 0. Adding 4 and negative 4, the y's, would give us 0. And what we've done is we've eliminated the y's. The y's are gone because you can't have 0y. 0y is just nothing. We've eliminated the y's by adding. Negative 4 plus 25, if we check the calculator, we get 21. That's the elimination step. So there's a little prompt here. How can you tell whether to add or subtract? Well, in this case, we added. We had 4y and negative 4y. Notice the signs in front of the 4's, plus and minus. If you're adding and they're opposites, you're going to end up with 0. So if the signs are different, add. And if the signs are the same, subtract. We're going to do a subtraction example shortly. What else also needs to be the same as the number in front of the letter? We're never going to be able to eliminate the x's because there's no way to add or subtract these numbers to get 0. Adding gives us 7, subtracting gives us 1. There's no elimination there. Elimination only works if the number in front of a pair of letters is the same. So that's really important to understand. Whenever you're doing elimination, you can only eliminate if the number in front of a letter is the same. So we have to have a pair of 4 y's. Doesn't matter if it's plus or minus, but it has to be a pair of 4 y's. Any example we're going to do from this point forward, there'll always be a pair of something. So let's keep that in mind. Once we've eliminated, well, what are we left with? We're just left with 7x equals 21. And that's something that we can solve. 7x equals 21. If we want to know what x is, we would just divide both sides by 7. And we end up with x equals 3. So when we were doing substitution, we had to take an equation, rearrange it, and substitute and do another, and then eventually we'd solve and we'd figure out what one of the letters are. In elimination, we stack and either add or subtract to figure out what one of the letters are. Now the rest of elimination is just like the rest of substitution. Now that we know what one of the letters is, x equals 3, we can take that 3 and we can replace it into either equation. So I had 2 options. I had a first equation and I had a second equation. And it doesn't matter which equation we work with. I'll just pick the second one. Our second equation was 3x minus 4y equals 25. So let's substitute. We're going to replace the x with 3. So we've got 3 times 3 minus 4y equals 25. And this is like the fourth step of substitution. It's the exact same step. It's a substitute step. 3 times 3 is 9 minus 4y equals 25. Letters to the left, numbers to the right. We have a number 9. Let's bring it over to the other side. 25 minus 9 and minus 4y. 25 minus 9 is 16 minus 4y. Divide away the negative 4 to get y by itself. We end up with, I'll write my answer over here, y equals negative 4. And now we know what x and y are. Now we have an answer. Just going to scroll all the way down to the bottom here. The solution, 3 for x, negative 4 for y. Now let's try to do a check. We're going to check both equations, see if our answer is right. Keep my answer on the bottom there. First equation was 4x plus 4y equals negative 4. Let's put our answer in. 3 for x minus 4 for y. We're aiming for minus 4. Let's see what we end up with. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. The question is 12 minus 16 negative 4? And it is. So it worked for our first equation. Let's check our second equation. Second equation is 3x minus 4y equals 25. Our answer was 3, negative 4, so we'll put 3 in for x and negative 4 in for y. And see if we end up with 25. Let's see. 3 times 3 is 9. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Is 9 plus 16 25? It is. So we've checked our answer in both equations, and both equations balanced, so it means we've got the right answer. 3, negative 4 is the correct answer. So let's backtrack a second here. The only new step here is stacking and adding, or stacking and subtracting. This first block with the first 2 steps, that's the new part. The rest is just like substitution. So really, you're learning 2 new steps. When can we use elimination? Well, we can use elimination if the number in front of either letter matches. So if you're going to try a practice question now, let's look to see if we can do elimination first. we've got 4x minus 2y equals 6, and we've got 2x plus 2y equals 12. I'm going to stack those. 4x minus 2y equals 6, and 2x plus 2y equals 12. So the question first is, can we eliminate? Well, the number in front of the x's is different, so we're not going to be able to eliminate the x's. But the number in front of the y's is the same. The signs are opposite, so if we add those together, a negative and a positive will give us our 0. Negative 2, add 2, gives us our 0. So we are going to add to eliminate the y's again. And I'll leave the rest for you to do. Add the x's, add the numbers, and then you're off to the races. So you can pause the video now and try example or practice 1, or you can wait till the lesson's over and you can come back to practice 1. Let's flip the page over and try one more example. Example 2. Same process, nothing's going to change, except instead of adding to eliminate, maybe this time we'll subtract. Let's find out. 3x minus 4y equals 14 is our first equation. Our second equation is 3x plus 7y equals negative 8. So do we have the same number in front of a pair of letters? And we do. Our x's, the number in front is 3. So now the question is, do we add 3 and 3 to make 0, or do we subtract 3 and 3 to make 0? The answer is that we subtract. So let's subtract down the columns. Subtraction's a little bit trickier because you have to be careful of your signs. 3 minus 3 is 0. The eliminate one's usually fairly straightforward. This is where it gets a little tricky. Negative 4, subtract positive 7. And we could type that in our calculator if we weren't sure what it was. We've got negative 4, subtract, oops, not turned on. Negative 4, subtract, and then positive 7 I'm going to put in brackets, plus 7. We get negative 11. Because remember, subtracting a positive is just like subtracting. So it's negative 4 subtract 7, negative 11. For the first couple of times you do elimination, if algebra and signs and integers is something that's challenging, we're going to use our calculator to make sure we get the right answer. So we got negative 4 minus 7 is negative 11. And then let's do our next one. We've got 14, subtract negative 8. In brackets, negative 8. And we end up with 22. So that's our first step. Let's take it one further. Let's eliminate that 0, and we just have negative 11y equals 22. And that's our stack and add, or stack and subtract. Step 3 is to solve. So we got negative 11y equals 22. Divide away whatever's in front of the letter. And in my head, 22 divided by 11 is 2. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. So we get negative 2. And now we know what y is. To finish elimination, we take what y is, and we replace it into either the first equation or the second equation, right into where y is. Doesn't matter which equation, I'm going to pick the first one. 3x minus 4y equals 14. If you pick the second one, that's fine too. You'll end up with the same answer, assuming you do the math right. So let's replace. Here's our equation. 3x minus 4y, but instead of y, we now know that y is negative 2. And now we can do a little bit of math. Negative 4 and negative 2 is 8. Collect our like terms. 3x stays on the left side. Number comes over to the other number. 14 minus 8. 14 minus 8 is 6. Divide both sides by 3. Get rid of the number in front of the letter. We end up with x equals 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now we know what x is, we know what y is. We can write our answer as a point. 2, negative 2. All right, step 5 is our check, usually optional. Let's give it a shot. I'm going to do the check a different way this time, a way that I did it similar in the first video. Since our number's on the right side, we're just going to do the left side and see if we end up with 14. So our first equation is 3x minus 4y. Our left side is 3x minus 4y. And we're going to check to see if we end up with 14 when we replace our numbers. So we got 3 times 2 minus 4 times negative 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Negative 4 and negative 2 is positive 8. 6 plus 8 is 14. And 14 is the right side. So we're good for our first equation. Second equation is, on the left side, 3x plus 7y. And we're aiming for negative 8. Let's see if we get negative 8. X is 2. Y is negative 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. 6 minus 14 is negative 8. And that's what the right side was. So we're good. Different way to do a left side, right side check. It doesn't matter which way you do it. And usually it's an optional step anyways. So that's it for our example of elimination by subtraction. Here's a second example that you can try, or second practice question that you can try. And again, it's going to be an elimination by, spoiler alert, subtraction. So if you flip back, you can try the first practice, which was by adding. Second practice by subtraction. And that's it for lesson 3.6. And actually, that's it for our unit. So it's the last video of Unit 3. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in Unit 4.